long answer? Yes.
Right, it's a small room. I see one.
You tickle me, right?
No, she did not.
She's just basically told
But I want to welcome you all and say that I'm so pleased that this session is happening, and I want to thank all of the panelists and all three of our resident librarians. They've done a fabulous job. And they have asked me to, let me get my notes out here, just mention what is absolutely true in the planning process. We spoke of our value of women of all races and ages and generations, and we understand and respect all of the definitions of womanhood and encourage everyone to participate in this discussion. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you, in case you don't know, the Dean of Libraries.
Thank you very much. Let's give another round of applause for Carol Wilkinson. She's So I'd like to invite you to all the things that's read up there. It's a part of this three-day symposium on women that WVU Libraries is kind of hosting. What I'm really proud of, though, is a lot of people in the community know that this is a very important thing. We talked to Judith a long time ago about this, and Jennifer Olikoff, and we've been very excited about it. And to now be a part of this panel is great. But we've also had some of our residents step up. And these are our visiting librarians who just kind of jumped in and helped with the programming of this. So I'd like them to kind of just stand up and turn around so you can all see them. I said my comments would be brief, and so I'm not going to go against my word. Lisette is going to actually introduce all the panelists, and I want to thank them on behalf of all of us in the libraries for taking the time to be a part of the program. So have a great program, and I look forward to hearing about it.
Thank you very much. My friends, I'd like to thank you all for coming here today and joining with us in the symposium. I would like to ask that all questions and comments be left until the very end of the program. So at this point in time, it'd be my honor and pleasure to introduce to you the panelists. So first we have Ms. Kathy Jasper, and Kathy serves as the program coordinator for the Advanced Center. She assists with the coordination of activities to support and sustain a culture of equity and inclusion, provides day-to-day continuity by promoting programs to the faculty and administrators, builds key relationships in departments and other units on campus, and assists in the financial management of the WVU Advanced Sponsorship Program. She brings key administrative experience to the Advanced Project after 12 years as the administrative assistant in the Center for Women's and Gender Studies. She is currently serving on the WVU Strategic Planning Council, the MLK Committee through the Center for Black Culture and Research, and has previously served on the WVU Staff Council and Council for Women's Concerns. Ms. Kathy.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Ethel Morgan Smith. She is a writer, professor, international culturist. Ethel Smith was born in Louisville, Alabama. In addition to teaching at WVU, she has also taught at the Universitat of Tübingen, Randolph-Macon Women's College, and Virginia Tech. Ethel Morgan Smith is the author from Whence Cometh My Help, the African American Community at Hollins College. Her essay, Love Means Nothing, was the winner of the 2005 Mid-Atlantic Arts Foundation Award. Ms. Smith has published in national and international journals, including Callaloo and African American Review. She is also the recipient of the Rockefeller Foundation Fellowship in Bellagio, Italy, the Fulbright Fellowship to Germany, Visiting Artist American Academy Rome, DuPont Fellowship, and Brandeis University Women's Research Center Visiting Fellow. Ms. Ethel Smith. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Marjorie Fuller. Ms. Fuller was appointed to the position of Director of the WVU Center for Black Culture and Research in the spring of 2008. She was previously a professor in the Department for Pan-African Studies at Kent State University. She has also served as the Assistant Dean for Intercultural Life at Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois, and as the Director of Diversity Affairs at Wartburg College in Waverly, Iowa. Ms. Fuller is a past national representative of I'm going to say that so wrong. I apologize. Black and multicultural professionals in educational and international education, and is a member, past executive board member for BRIAT and NABCC, the National Association for Black Cultural Centers. Ms. Marguerite Fuller. And now I would like to introduce to you Ms. Martha C. Yancey. Ms. Martha is currently the Interim Director and Access User Services and Resource Sharing Librarian at WVU Evansdale Library. Ms. Yancey has worked for WVU Library since 1996 and was instrumental in the creation of WVU Library's Diversity Residency Program. She is the incoming chair-elect of the American Library Division of the West Virginia Library Association and a former president of Western Pennsylvania, West Virginia chapter of the Association of College and Research Libraries and the West Virginia Library Association. In 2014, her research was published in the Journal of Information Literacy. Ms. Martha Yancey. So now I'm going to ask the first question, ladies. When did you first arrive at WVU?
Doesn't matter. Okay. All right. January 9th, 1995.
November 16th, 1996.
August 1993.
January 15th, 2008.
What, if anything, has changed in the university structure that has opened up opportunities for advancement for women of color over the last 25 years?
For me, it ties into where I work, which is the WVU Advance Center. The WVU Advance is an institutional transformation grant that the university received on the first try when the grant was submitted. The proposal was accepted on the first try in 2010. And the grant entails improving the recruitment, retention, and advancement of female faculty in the STEM fields. Over the past 5 years, this grant has offered career advancement and opportunities for women, not just in the STEM field, but also we've reached out to women that are, for instance, health sciences, the Davis College, and the engineering. I was engineering. I was thinking Statler College. That was the word I was thinking. Other than the Ebony College of Arts and Sciences.
Okay, well, I think from my particular perspective, what I've seen is opportunities for growth and leadership from HR. They offer diverse programs for women. There's also a mentoring structure. Also, I think Dr. Wheatley was quite instrumental in bringing women and STEM together and making it quite important for the university. I also think that the residency program that the library has initiated is quite important, and that particular structure will have influence for quite some time.
Oh, hi. I don't think my department has changed that much in terms of people of color, but there are more women, and more women in more powerful positions. We have Cheryl Ball, who just got a grant for $1 million. That's a big deal. And that makes, it gives other women, young women, someone to look up to and say, she did this, I can do this. So there are women doing more of those kinds of things in my department and within the college, I also believe.
Well,
There are more opportunities, I think, as Dr. Smith said, for women. One of the things that stood out for me since I've been here was the Women's Leadership Initiative that was started in 2010. And I was blessed enough to be a part of that initial group, and it allowed us, it actually opened the door for women to have an opportunity to make connections with one another that they might not otherwise have had the opportunity to make, and to build friendships, but also professional networking connections in other divisions around the college. Like, this is a big place, and we're very separate. So having a women's group that allows you to come together with women from all over the campus has really benefited many of us greatly. In terms of women of color here, I don't have a real take on the professional opportunities, because what I see is that black women were hired here, and I'm just going to let's just get controversial right from the moment I step in the door, okay? There were a lot of, when I first came in, there were a lot of African American women that came in at the same time I had, or they had just gotten here slightly before I did, and they weren't necessarily having a negative experience, but it is very difficult to retain them. None of the cohort of friends that I had when I arrived are still here. The only person that's still here is Ethel and a few other people that were here before me. But all of the younger black women that came in found their way out. And for a variety of reasons. Personal lives are stagnant. They didn't have an opportunity to really do some of the research, I think, that they wanted to do. And so, that always has concerned me since I first arrived, that I noticed that people of color often don't, they come. Like, I've had a fantastic experience, since I've been here, but they don't stay. And what can we do to create an environment that allows young African American women to want to stay here, to put down roots here, to settle here, and maybe have families, or I guess if you're going to have a family, you've got to find somebody to marry, but what can we do to enhance the environment? That's been my question since I arrived, to make it so that it's not just professionally rewarding, but it's just generally rewarding to stay here. Sorry, I didn't mean to go so long. You haven't got the ticket yet, though. Okay.
Do you feel that the environment at WVU is more supportive/inclusive than in the past?
Well, since I've been here in the past, that's a big question. I was thinking about it early on when I got the information. Well, there has been change, but inclusive and all of that. I think what happens to us is what Marjorie said. It's a big place, but we get into our little worlds, and we tend to stay there unless something like this happens or something that piques our imagination or our interest. So I think that's an issue. But I think we talk about things like diversity and equality and all of that. I think we talk about it all the time. We just don't tend to do anything about it. Because to do something about it, we have to change, and that's hard. And we sort of get on to the next project as opposed to dealing with it. That's been my experience. But change is hard, and it has to come from within, as I said before. And if we're not willing to do the hard work, then it's just not going to happen. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep working at it and trying. And, with our own students that we teach or administer or whatever we do with them, sometimes it's hard and it's complicated because students don't read as much as they did when I first came here, or they don't even listen. Forget reading for a minute. I find myself so much of the time feeling like I'm in elementary school. On Thursday, this is due. What's due on Thursday, Professor Swin? Mary, would you repeat that, please? No, I don't know. This is the kind of world that we live in. This is the reality. And that is not just at this university. I have colleagues at other universities, and we often talk about what can we do. But we can talk about it like we're doing, but I don't suspect that's going to happen a lot.
For me, that question, the word that jumped out for me is, you says, do you feel that the environment at WVU is more supportive / inclusive than in the past? The key word for me was more. I cannot say that the environment is more supportive. I definitely cannot say it's more inclusive. I feel we've made some progress. We're not where we were like when I first started here. I mean, when I first started here, there was no provost that looked like me when I first started here. And it took me being here 20 plus years to see a provost that looked like me. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing that now. And so I don't think we're at a place where I can honestly say we're more supportive and more inclusive. But like Dr. Smith said, it's definitely in a position where change is a key. And we all, and she was saying how we feel about change. And change is cool if someone else is changing. If it's me, then it's not the cool thing. But it's all right if you change because you have a problem. But I'm not going to change because I don't think I have a problem. And I think once that is, not me personally, but once everybody as an individual looking in the mirror and say, okay, what's my role? Where do I need to make a change? And then then I might be at a place where I can say more supportive, more inclusive.
I think in order to answer this question for me, I can't speak to the broader university because I've always sort of kept myself within the realm of the libraries. And for me, I've always felt included. I've never felt excluded at all. And it may very well be the composition of the individuals that I've worked with. It could very well be that when I was hired, there was an African-American dean who hired me. So I understood at that particular point that there was possibility. And it might also be me as a person. I don't go outward very often. And I was very comfortable. I've always been very comfortable within the realm that I'm in right now. So in that way, maybe I'm the anomaly, and I've always felt good. Always felt good. And always thought that the broader institution was very much like the library system.
Well, I think that in terms of answering the question, for myself, I'm very much in the situation you're in. Mm-hmm. I came in under an African-American vice president and associate vice president and was made to feel very much a part of the fabric of our office and given a lot of freedom and autonomy in terms of planning programming and doing the things that I needed to do to fulfill my responsibilities to reach out to create a more diverse and aware environment for the campus community. And so I've had a great experience in that sense. I don't know that I can speak to that for other people, but that's been my experience.
Would you be willing to comment on your personal path and its relationship to success? And this question has two parts to it. What deliberate obstacles, if any, do you feel were placed on your path?
I think that in my department, I think a lot of times what happens is we have different ways of approaching different scholars, for an example. I remember maybe 5 years ago, I was invited to come to Virginia Tech and work with Mickey Giovanni and Ruby Dee, and it became a book and it became a CD. And I went and talked to my associate chair about it. I was so excited. And my associate chair said, oh, those fiction writers. So there's just this difference. He didn't know who Ruby Dee was. And I find that And that, to me, that's just a perfect example of what I find all the time. If I write in my file that I did this with someone, I have to go into great detail to explain who that someone is. If they don't recognize that someone, as they often don't, I don't get the kind of credit that I believe I deserve for that. So, because they don't understand, we, meaning black people, have to know everything about them, but they don't have to know anything or very little about us. I got a call from this woman who, in Roanoke, Virginia, where I used to live, and she had, she's very liberal, white woman, very active, and this is, I'm showing this as an example. So anyway, so she called me and said, I think we found some graves, some slave graves, and we need to be in touch with as many people as we can, and this was just so white liberal to me. We need to call Skip Gates and Cornell West. I said, hold it. Everybody knows, if you've been around for the last 10 years, that Cornell is crazy, and nobody calls him these days. It was like, but this knowing our people, you know, another thing. When I nominated Nikki Giovanni to receive an honorary degree, I would get phone calls from the dean's office asking me who she was. This was insulting. I was insulted by how she was treated when she got here. I will never, ever bring a dignitary on this campus again because of those experiences.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. No, it's what happened. It's what happened. And I got no support for she came up here for free, right? This is a woman who usually gets $25,000, $30,000 a pop, right? And I had her at my house. No one would reimburse me for the food I fed her. This is insulting. And I was so poor. I had just bought a house. I had bought a used refrigerator. You know what I mean? Hoping it would last until the next payday. It was so insulting. So that has been my experience. However, in spite of that, I have continued to try to bring African Americans to this campus. Like I said, I won't insult my dignified friends, but I have continued to bring well-qualified African Americans to this campus because the students are in need of that. When they go out into the real world, it's not going to look like this campus. And I would be doing them a disservice if I talk as if they were going to go out to a world that looked like this campus. That is my commitment. That is why I teach. I came from a family of teachers, and this is why we do it. But people aren't willing to deal with the truth. And what I teach, for an example, is African American history, African American literature. And it's not fun to go in and tell a bunch of white kids that your ancestors were assholes. You know, it's not fun. And do you think I'm going to get a good evaluation for that? And so when I say on my evaluations, what I do is different from everybody else. It is. It is. I tell them the ugly part of American history. Some like it, some don't, some write nasty things, but that's what I'm committed to do, and I would do that wherever I am. Yeah.
Well, I would say here at WVU, there haven't been any deliberate obstacles to date placed in my pathway. Like I said, I've had a tremendous amount of autonomy, and I feel that we've made a lot of progress at the center, you know, and been able to really reach out into the community and you know, send a message to people that we're there and what our mission and our goals really are. And the support system has been there for me to do that. I have, however, in the past had obstacles at other institutions placed in my pathways, deliberate ones. But similar to, not exactly the same, but similar to what Dr. Smith was talking about. When I was teaching Pan-African Studies at a smaller institution, it was a regional campus. There were people there who did not appreciate the fact that this was being taught in this environment. And so my class is typically filled. right away. They would be, sometimes there would even be a waiting list, and I was thrilled. I mean, we would have wonderful discussions, conversations. They did tremendous amount of work, and it was very productive because when you take a course in Pan-African Studies or African American Studies or whatever, most of my students were white, but it changes your worldview. It gives you insight into what others are thinking and makes you realize that there's a very broad and expansive canon of literature out there that you haven't even begun to explore. Well, there was a clique going on. We don't always like to talk about the cliques because they tend to, that sounds childish or it sounds, sophomoric, but there was a clique of people who wanted their courses to make. And my courses were pulling, students from them. And so my courses would make just barely. And so I wasn't able to really teach the number of students that I was used to teaching. And so when I said something about it, oh no, your courses just aren't filling up. It wasn't making any sense to me. So then students started coming to me, Ms. Fuller, I really want to take your course, but they told me that I couldn't. I said, what do you mean you couldn't? Who told you that? It's just like, it gets you riled up and you're wondering, why can't you? It's a GEC, it's a diversity credit, especially for nurses, that kind of thing. What's going on? And then I found out that they needed to pull students. So they didn't eliminate my courses, but they weren't fair in the distribution of students in my courses. And then that makes it seem as if my courses aren't as popular, my courses aren't as valuable, all of those things, which that to me is a deliberate obstacle to your advancement. Because if your courses are consistently full, then, well, let's add some courses, or let's allow you to develop some courses, because your courses are successful. So that happened, and a plethora of other things around, people feeling as if they have entitlement to, the resources or the students or whatever else there is available, and a disregard, and misunderstanding of what it is you do and the message that you're trying to get out to students. Sorry,
Yeah, you read all over 5 minutes.
Awesome. Well, I'll be short because since I'm not teaching faculty, I haven't run into those kinds of issues. And I think very much where I work, it has mirrored you in that there are no real, there have never been any real obstacles placed in my way. I think the only obstacle, if there was one, is that sometimes maybe I was just a little bit ahead of the curve and I had to wait until other people were ready to catch up. So that sort of made me, just a little bit. And so, but you learn to deal with that as mature women. You just learn to deal with that. So that was, I think, my issue.
I can really do it because I've never encountered any deliberate obstacles in my path to success, which I don't even know if I think I'm still on the path. I haven't got to success. I'm still on the path to success. But there has not been any deliberate obstacles put out there to prevent me. In my case, it's always, if something happened deliberate, I never caught it. And so I think it's never, if it was there, I didn't see it. Because I think I was always looking at the rainbow. I was just looking somewhere else, and I just never really saw it. And unless it popped me in the face, I probably wouldn't have never known. I did again, maybe it did, and I still didn't catch it.
Okay. I'd like to ask this question. What is your vision of leadership?
My vision of leadership is, I will say I am a Christian woman. And so my vision of leadership is based on what I've learned in leadership studies and also on my Christian path. It's servitude. You know, if you're going to be a leader, then you're not the person that sits and, you know, of course you have to direct, but you don't just sit and bark out orders or have people do things that are meaningless tasks or whatever, and you are always willing to help, to aid, to be a part of whatever it is that you're putting forward as a leader. You are a servant. And that's how I see leadership. I don't see it, sometimes I don't see it mirrored that way for me, you know, but I know that that's the goal, you know, and we all make mistakes. I mean, you know, there's nobody that ever is the perfect leader any more than there's the perfect mother or the perfect boss or the perfect anything. But I think that if you bear in mind that, you know, one of the things that I teach my students, we have a summer program where we bring students in, and I don't have time to tell you about it, I only have 5 minutes. But we bring students in and we immerse them in their culture, in African American and African culture. And the first thing that we teach them when they come in is, it's not about me. You know, it's about we. It's about. And so I think that a good leader always lets everyone that they're leading know that they're there for them, that this is about a community effort, this is about us and what we can accomplish together.
I think a good leader has to have vision first, and when that vision should be able to seep down rather. And I think a good leader has to have good communication skills. And I think that that's very important because oftentimes that's not the case. You get an email about something and then you get another one to correct that and then you get another one and you say, oh my God, what's going on here? You know, so that communication is just vital in that way. And sometimes not emails, just simply sitting down talking to a person to clear up misunderstandings, which doesn't seem to happen very much anymore. But I think that whole idea of communication. And I think that fosters a building a very positive community for all. And I think that we're always leading, no matter what position that we're in at this university, I feel like. So if I could do good work by my students, by not rewarding them when they don't do well, you know, that is not really vision. That is just, let me get rid of this, you know, for the moment kind of thing. So that's what I mean when I say vision. It can come from any one of us. But I think it has to come down from the top first. There are going to be people who always do their job and always be outstanding no matter who's at the top. But I think there will be more people in other positions who's willing to work hard and see that their leader is a good leader and has an interest in them. So that's what I think a good leader is.
Well, Chanel, you know, the first thing that I will say about leadership, fearlessness. You need to be fearless. But you also need to be able to identify a common purpose and inspire individuals to move towards that purpose. Once you can do that, I think the rest is really easy. Communication is great. It's helpful. But it really is being able to inspire, to move, and have people believe in you. That, to me, is leadership.